Welcome to the Bears Talk podcast, our first ever live edition of the show. I don't know how this is going to work out, Bears fans. Like I said, we've never done this before, and hopefully YouTube, I have a little delay here. Hopefully YouTube will cooperate with us and you guys will be able to interact with me and our guest Luke Easterling from Athlon Sports, who I'm going to bring into the show in a few minutes. I'm trying to let him enjoy, if that's the right word. I'm assuming we're heading toward overtime here, the Tampa Bay Lightning playoff hockey game. We'll see. But I'm going to bring Luke in a few minutes. We're going to talk about the 2023 NFL draft with a little bit of a Chicago Bears spin. We're going to have some bold predictions that each of us are going to make. It might not all be Bears specific. We are only a couple of days away from the NFL draft kicking off, so we want to take more of a league-wide perspective on it. But there's going to be a lot of Bears talk, hence the name of the podcast. So let's bring Luke in now and kind of watch in real time the struggle and pain of a playoff hockey game. That look, I'm not a hockey fan, Luke, so I don't know what you're going through, what you're experiencing now. And obviously the Chicago Bears haven't had many meaningful games over the last handful of years. So that pain and agony of playoff loss, maybe the double doink, is the most recent heartbreaking experience for all Bears fans out there. Tell us, what are you feeling right now, man? What was it, a 4-1 lead? And they gave it all away.
Rough. I mean, first of all, let me preface this by saying that no actual hockey fan that's watching this feels bad for me at all. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won
you're being
two Stanley Cups in a row, and then they lost in the finals 6-game series last year. So they've made it to the finals 3 years in a row. They've won the championship 2 years in a row. So I'm sure the comments will be filled with "Cry me a river, Lightning fan."
And you realize, sad. Luke, you're amongst Chicago Bears fans who are very, very angry at who can get very angry at fan bases who don't appreciate winning, who don't appreciate consistent playoff appearances, runs.
You probably got some Blackhawk fans. You got some Blackhawk fans. They know what a dynasty looks like. They won 3 titles in 6 years or something.
Well, that's true. I mean, I am kind of cutting this down to just Bears fans. I'm assuming the Chicago the sports landscape obviously has had a little more championship success than just us Bears. But Luke, you know why you're here, man. You are my guy, my NFL draft guy, and the 2023 NFL draft is right around the corner. Man, we've talked almost, how many years has it been now that we've connected through
Think about
the NFL
Think about it. If the NFL draft didn't exist, we would not be friends.
I know, it's kind of scary, a little bit disturbing. There's a whole range of emotions that can be applied to that. But at the end of the day, we're here, man. This is like a holiday season for both of us. This is where we both cut our teeth in the industry. Now, you're over at Athlon Sports doing great things. Those of us out there, Bears fans who are watching this, who may recognize Luke from some of our past shows, will remember him from the Draft Wire at USA Today. He had an exceptional run of success with USA Today, and now he's over at Athlon Sports, one of the best and longest running brands. If you're a football fan, pre-internet days, that Athlon Sports magazine, that was the go-to Bible before the college season, draft previews, and now Luke's taking it into the next generation here with his work online. Luke, tell us a little bit about what's going on at Athlon Sports, some of the things you have cooking up over there.
Yeah, man, it's a great team of people. We're doing everything we can to build out. Like you said, everybody knows Athlon. The magazines we've been reading them our whole lives, right? We're well aware of the brand on that side of things, but obviously we're trying to expand and build out on the digital side, and just really excited about everything we have planned to grow that side of things. And part of that obviously is the draft content, which I'm taking care of right now. Got a fresh 2-round mock draft update right after the Aaron Rodgers trade. So that's up there live right now. And just all the scouting profiles and everything. Obviously we've been loading it up on DraftNet content since I started over there last month. So having a blast, loving it over there. Again, almost 7 years at USA Today, man. What a fun time. You and I overlapped there for a little bit as well. Great team of people over there. Obviously still wish them the best. Had such a great run there, and love all those folks over there. But excited about the future, excited about what we're building here at Athlon.
Yeah, that Wire network over at USA Today, which was developed by our good buddy Neil Coulong, who's also a colleague of yours now. He's doing great stuff with Sports Illustrated. It has really launched a lot of great careers, a lot of great careers still happening there in the Wire Network. So everybody make sure you check out that stuff. A good friend of ours, Alyssa Barbieri, Bears Wire, amazing Chicago Bears website as well. So hats off to all those guys. But listen, Athlon Sports is where it's at now, Bears fans. Make sure you're checking it out for great draft coverage over the next couple of days. And Luke, you mentioned it a little bit there, what your 2-round mock draft, the big news of Monday is arguably, it's already a successful draft for Chicago Bears fans. We couldn't ask for a greater gift. Bye-bye, number 12, Aaron Rodgers. You're gone. The NFC North is no longer your neighborhood. It's over. The run of the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers slaying the Chicago Bears, as he aptly put, owning the Chicago Bears officially came to an end. They swap picks with the Jets in the first round. The Packers now have the 13, the Jets have the 15, and the Packers have a conditional, potentially first-round pick in 2024. As long, I think they pick up a second-rounder as well. Luke, your initial reaction, your gut feeling, who won the trade? How do you think this will impact the New York Jets, the Green Bay Packers, and the overall ripple effect it's going to have on the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft?
Yeah, well, again, this is all stuff that I actually broke down on Athlon as well. I graded the whole trade for all three parties, right? The two teams and for Rodgers himself. I've got the mock draft up as well. But the funny thing about this is I was on the radio this afternoon, ESPN radio in Louisville, and I swear to you, man, I was on the phone and they asked me, hey, when does the Aaron Rodgers trade happen? What's it going to be for? And I was like, probably Friday after the first round. They finally come together because it's just a big game of chicken, right? These two sides are like, hey, I have a little bit of leverage, but I know you can't not make this deal. And I know you have a little bit of leverage, but I can't not make this deal either. But they asked me what the trade would be. And I was like, you know what? Probably one of those second round picks and a conditional second rounder next year that can turn into a first rounder. And while we're on the air, it comes down that's the trade, and it's basically the exact parameters that I set out. That's the way it was going to be. So it was hilarious to watch that play out live on the air.
Hey, Luke, if you've been doing this long enough, like you have, like I have, you kind of get a sense, the old Jimmy Johnson trade valuation chart and past precedent quarterbacks who are a little over the hill, what they tend to draw in terms of, draft picks in return. It was not necessarily a predictable trade package that would go from the Packers to the Jets, but this seems like a fair deal. Right. I mean, it seems to me like the Jets get their guy to make a Super Bowl run. As much as Bears fans hate Aaron Rodgers, the reality is he's still one of the better, if not best, quarterbacks in the NFL. And with a defense like the Jets have, he is the kind of the ribbon on that package to potentially put them over the top. And for the Packers, they potentially load up on some draft picks. They finally hand the keys to the car to Jordan Love. We'll see what he can do. Personally, I was never, and this is not a Bears bias, pro Chicago Bears, anti-Packers take. I was never a big Jordan Love guy. What do you think his outlook is for 2023 and the short-term future? Because I don't think he's going to have a very long leash in Green Bay. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize, Luke, a lot of Packers fans don't realize is they've got
the rest of us have lived for so long.
3 decades plus of Hall of Fame quarterback play. We're talking over 30 years without a quarterback, having a quarterback that you had no questions about. First ballot Hall of Famers, guys that you knew as long as they were lining up under center, there was a really good chance that you were going to win the game. So this is the first time in 3 decades that there's a quarterback who doesn't fit that profile. Jordan Love has more questions and answers about his game right now. What do you think about his short-term future in Green Bay?
I mean, good luck. That's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, what shoes to fill? He's got 2 sets of them, right? You got the Favre into Rodgers, and now everyone's going to expect you to be what Rodgers was to Favre. And that's just, I mean, that's ridiculous. That's insurmountable, I think. So, the way I broke the trade down, I think the Packers get the better end of it at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, you're trading a guy that could have retired, could retire after a year, and you got premium assets. You've got Those conditions are really easy to hit if he stays healthy, and they probably get a first. You're basically talking about a 1, a 2, and a trade up in the first round this year for a guy that you knew wasn't going to be your quarterback anyway. He was not going to play for you this year, and he might not play for anybody after this year at all. So you tell me you get a first and a second for that guy? I mean, that's huge to me. And so for the Jets, yeah, they get their guy, but it better work. It had better work. They had better win a Super Bowl this year or next year.
Luke, I can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers with the New York media. Oh my God.
That's what I mean.
He's so used to showing up the Green Bay market. It's going to be a different world in New York. Wait till he's on the back page of the local papers. I don't know if he's got the personality to handle it. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle it. Couple bad games, three out of 4 games. Maybe he's playing under expectations, but underwhelming. Rodgers to me is a fragile guy. He's a fragile guy who's had he's been pampered in Green Bay for a decade and a half, and he doesn't have that equity in New York. He doesn't have that long of a leash in New York. The Jets
They don't care one bit.
Super Bowl or bust. It's literally a bust. If they don't win the Super Bowl, the trade was a failure. So
exactly, and that's kind of why I skew the trade more in the direction of Green Bay too, because it's all or nothing. You have to win a championship, maybe this year. Again, he's a 1 year rental. He's an annual rental at this point in his career. So you had better win everything right now. And it's just so hard to do. And he just went from the easiest conference to do it in to the hardest conference to do it in. Yep. And so he made things harder on himself. I do like a lot of the talent he's going to have. I think he's going to have some talented weapons, a lot of talent on offense. That defense is great. He's got a defensive head coach in Robert Saleh, who I think is really good. There's all the reasons in the world why they can win some games, and I think they could even win that division handily if Buffalo can't get their act together and be consistent and be as talented, play up to their talent. But man, when they get to the playoffs, you really think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets makes enough of a difference to take down Mahomes and the Chiefs, Burrow and the Bengals? Like, really? Do we really think that's enough? I don't know, man. And again, if they go to the AFC title game and lose, it's still a bust. You still didn't get it. And to give up a 1 and a 2 for a guy that you need that to happen right now, that's a huge risk.
Especially after missing on Zach Wilson at the number 2 pick overall just a couple of drafts ago. If you take 2 massive home run swings on a quarterback, both via a rookie first-round pick and an aging Hall of Fame veteran, it's literally you just can't get it right. And what happens next?
Everybody gets fired.
Everybody gets fired. So yeah. Let's look now to the 2023 NFL Draft, and the Packers move up to number 13 with this deal. What do you think who do they have their eye on, Luke? Who do you think is the apple of their eye? Just moving 2 spots. I mean, I'm reading a lot of these reports, and you know how I feel about this, Luke, when there's the Twitter insiders.
'Tis the season, baby.
Listen, who talk about, insert division scout here told me this, that, and the other thing. It's all bullshit. And I mean, you got to read right through it. And people already jumping the minute the trade was announced, they have intel about who the Packers are targeting at 13. It's absolute nonsense. Everybody's just guessing and hoping something sticks. But if you're in your gut feeling, who do you think the Packers are zeroing in on at number 13?
I mean, what have the Packers always done to their fans? Disappoint them in the first round by not taking a pass catcher at all. So when you move up to 13, all the fans are going to say, what? Jackson Smith-Njigba or Dalton Kincaid, right? Give me a pass catcher. Give me the wide receiver. Give me a tight end, whatever. And you know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to take a defensive player because that's what they always do. And I think it's Lucas Van Ness. I think it's the Iowa edge defender. Wasn't a starter, but everybody likes the physical tools. Everybody likes the upside, the potential, whatever you want to call it. I have him as a second round guy, but I get it. I understand why he's going to go higher than that. Happens to a lot of guys, but that guy feels like a Packers pick to me. I feel like you can say all day long, oh, you're going to get weapons. You're going to get weapons. They never do it. They never do it. They never spend those early picks. Go back. They had 2 first-round picks 2 years ago, and they took 2 defensive players from the same defense at Georgia. They took Quay Walker. They took Devontae Wyatt. The Packers are going to spend those top picks everywhere but pass catcher until they don't. They're going to have to do it for me to believe it because that's just not the way that franchise seems to do.
the best thing in the world for Chicago Bears fans. Even though no Bears fans want Jackson Smith and Jigba to be wearing green and gold in Green Bay, but it would be just so hilarious for the first time they actually take a wide receiver in the first round to be the draft that immediately follows an Aaron Rodgers trade, the ultimate double middle finger to Aaron Rodgers. It'll be like Bears fans making the pick, even though we'll then have to deal with Jackson Smith and Jigba twice a year moving on. And that's not a good scenario either. Now, let's get off the Packers. 15 minutes of Jets Pack. We had to do it, Bears fans. We had to talk about the trade. It has a long-reaching tail. It's going to impact the Chicago Bears in the NFC North. It's the biggest story of the last several years in Aaron Rodgers trade. So if you didn't like the first 15 minutes talking about the trade, I don't know what to tell you. We're going to get back now onto the Chicago Bears. And Luke, I want some bold predictions here. We're going to kind of go back and forth on some bold predictions, Bears related, overall NFL draft related. It could be anything regarding the 2023 NFL draft, because one thing Chicago Bears fans, it's a very educated group of fans, I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
What they know is that this year's draft is basically expect the unexpected. Right now, we're sitting here and Chicago has the number 9 pick, but Ryan Poles has proven very early in his tenure as the Bears general manager that he's willing to move around the board. I don't think he's satisfied with the number of draft picks he has right now. I think he would be very comfortable sliding back, say, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where there's some rumblings about Pittsburgh possibly going from 17 to 9 to target one Jalen Carter if he's there, offensive lineman if he's there. And if the Bears slide back 8 spots, they pick up an additional second, maybe some more mid-round picks. That could be right in Ryan Poles' wheelhouse. But what I want to do for tonight's show is just focus on no trades. Like, we're at the number 9 pick. The Chicago Bears are at number 9. Gun to head, the proverbial gun to head, Luke, who do you think Ryan Poles pulls that trigger on with the 9th pick?
I think it's got to be one of those tackles. I think it's Paris Johnson Jr. if he's there, and I think if he's not, it's Darnell Wright. I think the Tennessee right tackle, they like Broderick Jones. We talked about that, or excuse me, Braxton Jones. We've talked about him before. If they like him on the left side and Darnell Wright is there, Paris Johnson can play either side, so that's fine. He's even played guard before. So if he's there, I think he's the pick. Darnell Wright, I think, would be a close second, and I think they'd be happy with that. I think if both of those guys off the board, they'd probably be more motivated to move down. But I think it's got to be a tackle there, or you're moving down. If not, it's a pure board pick. It's a pure grade pick. It's Christian Gonzalez if they have an otherworldly, grade on him as a corner, which I would completely understand, and they take him, that's why. If Jalen Carter happens to get there, he's not going to, but if he does, I get that. But one of those 2 tackles makes the most sense if they stick and pick there.
I've been hearing a lot about this Darnell Wright as the fit because he's a right tackle, and I get it. Darnell Wright does project as a right tackle, but I think somehow is being overlooked, Luke. And I don't know if maybe it's just years and years of draft study and research and scouting and everything that you and I have done for countless number of drafts now. When I hear a guy he's a right tackle, almost like he's a right tackle only, right. That's not a top 10 pick. It's never been a top 10 pick. You're talking about left tackles as top 10 picks, or offensive tackles who can play either side. A guy who they say will start his career on the right side and eventually move to the left side. Whenever Darnell Wright is mentioned, he's a right tackle basically only. And I think the only reason why he's getting top 10 love at this point is because the Chicago Bears' biggest need is right tackle. But that's today. Like right now, the Bears' biggest need is right tackle. But if they take Paris Johnson, and he's the guy that is the first round pick, and he's a better left tackle than Braxton Jones, then Braxton Jones just moves to the right side and they got their right tackle, or Paris Johnson plays right tackle and Braxton continues his development on the left side. I don't think the Bears are going to take an offensive lineman in the first round specifically because he fits that one that threads the needle on the right side. I don't think Darnell Wright's going to go as high as many people think. And mainly because when you talk about right tackle only projection, nobody's talking about Darnell Wright as a left tackle. Sure, he might be a pretty nasty guard if he kicks inside, but again, it's the same reason why I don't think Peter Skoronski is going to be the pick for the Bears at number 9.
Mm-mm.
You don't take an offensive guard that high unless, listen, if they think he's a Quentin Nelson type, which some people think, Luke, that Skoronski's the next great all-pro guard, which maybe he will be. Bears signed Nate Davis to a big free agent contract.
Right.
Tevin Jenkins was admirable. He did a decent job at guard last year. Like you're taking like a half step forward by adding Skoronski, because now you take one of these other 2 starters, you turn them into a backup, and you still have a void at right tackle. So I think it's Paris Johnson or bust. But one of my bold takes, I don't know if it's a bold take, a bold prediction. I don't even think it matters at this point, because I think the narrative is already built up to this. Paris Johnson's not going to be on the board at 9, Luke. He's gone. He's gone, because I think as we have kind of settled in here, as we get closer to the first round, Paris Johnson is going to be clearly the only offensive tackle in this class that profiles almost like a Tyron Smith type of player in Dallas, where, remember, he went number 9 overall when he came out. I think Paris Johnson, the more you dive into the film, the more you look at the just prototype measurables and everything, he is an NFL left tackle from top to bottom for the next decade. Those guys usually don't make it past pick 6, pick 7. And I think that's where you're going to see him go, probably to Vegas. Where do you think his floor is as a draft prospect and his ceiling in terms of where he comes off the board in the first round?
I think his ceiling is 3 to Arizona. I think that's very real. If Arizona stays at 3 and they don't move down with a team who's moving up for a quarterback or whatever, that is a pick that just would not shock me at all. I know that might seem surprising, but he's been my OT1 for a long time. He's been at the top of the board. I've moved the other guys around a couple of times in terms of Skoronski. We talked about Wright. Broderick Jones is the other guy from Georgia in the top 4. That order has changed a bit. Paris Johnson has stayed there. He's played right tackle at a high level. He's even played guard at a high level. He's played left tackle at a high level, and he's done it against some damn good pass rushers in the Big Ten. And that's the thing I'll mention about Wright is the reason Darnell Wright's getting talked about is not because he's a right tackle that would fit with the Bears. Go watch him against Will Anderson. Go watch him against some of the best pass rushers that he went against, and he shut those guys down. I think that's why we're talking about him. And he played left tackle the year before last anyway, so he's got some experience at left tackle. I think teams prefer him at right tackle. And I'm here in Tampa Bay. Tristan Wirfs has been a right tackle the whole time. He's a 2-time All-Pro already in 3 years. You're telling me that guy, if you think he can be that guy, he's worth number 9 pick, because it isn't 10 or 20 years ago, man. You know how it works now. The defenses, they wised up. They moved the top edge rusher to the other side. They started noticing, hey, the right tackles aren't as good. We'll put our best guy over there. And offenses have had to adjust, and they really have. So you have to have 2 really great tackles to work, which means you got to be able to invest those resources in that. So I don't think that. I think that's a little bit more of a myth now than it used to be. But Paris Johnson could go 3, and it's because he's got that versatility, the starting experience at a high level, and the success everywhere he's lined up. And there's no physical questions. I mean, he's got the size, the length, the athleticism, the things he can do for a guy that size. They call him a dancing bear, don't they? When they got big guys that can move like that, they call him a dancing bear. So if he's there at 9, I think that's the floor, right?
He'll be the Chicago dancing bear. So
why not?
Let's say he's gone, Luke. Let's say Paris Johnson's gone, because I've had my heart set on him. I think anybody that's come to Bears Talk and has read any of my draft content, I've been, I don't want to say anti-Peter Skoronski, because I would be thrilled if the Bears land a guy who potentially could be an all-pro offensive lineman. I don't see how it makes them much better in 2023, 2024, or even 2025 if they don't solve the right tackle situation.
Right.
Well, Paris Johnson is gone. Broderick Jones, he's definitely a candidate for that selection, but is there any chance in the 2023 NFL draft universe, if he's on the board, that you see the Chicago Bears burning down the fan base and selecting Bijan Robinson?
I knew this was going to... They burned us down when I took him at 35 on this show.
Yeah. Well, look, that was a long time ago. And I think at that time, people still, there has been, for some reason, this unreasonable thought process early in draft season that Bijan was going to slide to the Bills at 27 or whatever they pick. late in the first round, maybe the Bengals at the end of the first round or into the top of the second round. And look, I understand the running back valuation argument, how essentially you don't take one in the first round because you can get all these starting quality players in the second and third round. And in a traditional draft class with a traditional group of running backs, it's 100% accurate. Yeah. But every now and then we come across a running back prospect who's different, right? And those different guys get treated differently. And Bijan Robinson is a different dude. It's like when Saquon Barkley came out and he went number 2 overall to the Giants. Was that a reach? I don't know. It's up for debate. But Saquon has turned into one of the best running backs in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, when he was picked as high as he was, Christian McCaffrey is a game-changing offensive weapon. Look what he did for the 49ers after that trade. And Bijan isn't a 25 carry a game guy only. He can be that guy. But he's the kind of guy that can get you 20 carries and 10 catches, 200 all-purpose yards at the snap of a fingers. And you put him in the same backfield with Justin Fields. I mean, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator, how do you sleep at night trying to game plan for that kind of an offensive attack? So do you think there's a chance that Ryan Poles could look at his board and say, Paris Johnson's gone, Will Anderson's gone, Jalen Carter's gone, Christian Gonzalez is gone? Because I agree with you, Luke. I think Christian Gonzalez is an all-pro. I don't know if you think this highly of him. To me, he's an all-pro. He's going to be an all-pro in the league. These guys are gone. Nobody's calling for our pick. You can't trade out. Maybe Tyree Wilson is still on the board. Maybe Broderick Jones is still on the board. But the guy with the highest grade is Bijan Robinson. Do you think he would actually pull the trigger, knowing Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman are currently on the roster?
I don't think he would make that pick. I'd love to see it just because it would be fun to watch. Again, he's the number 3 player on my board. So you're talking about best player available. He's going to be the best player available for every team that picks after 4. You know, like he's going to be the best guy on the board. So anybody who takes him, I get it. I don't know. I don't see Poles doing that. I see him trying to handle the need more so, whether it's offensive line. He could convince himself that Broderick Jones is worth that pick or whatever. But I don't know, if you're going to go pure best player available and stick to it, he will be the best player on the board for every team until he gets picked. But this leads me into one of my bold predictions. I do not think Bijan Robinson is the only first-round lock at running back. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is absolutely going to come off the board Thursday night, and maybe a lot earlier than people think.
Jahmyr Gibbs has a lot of Jamal Charles to his game, Luke. Jamal Charles is the first guy that jumps off the film to me when I see him run. And we all know the kind of career Charles had with the Kansas City Chiefs. Injuries cut it a little bit short, but he was one of the most.
I think he's Kamara. I think he's somewhere between Charles and Kamara. I see a lot of that.
I don't doubt that. My bold prediction is Gibbs is going to be sitting around in the second round, and he's going to drop a lot further than people think. Nope. Only because he's 199 pounds. We have seen guys with his profile, like Jamal Charles, fall into the second round or later. I don't see a team. If we're sitting here, Luke,
I think part of it is that they will view him like I view him, where if you look at my Excel sheet, there's one column that just has Jahmyr Gibbs in it. I would not treat him as a 20 carry, 25 carry running back. I just want that guy on my offense, and I'll do what I can to figure out how to get him the ball. I think that's what teams will say. They're like,
Oh, we have a live Tampa Bay Lightning reaction. Uh-oh, is that game over? Did we just watch the heartbreak of a Lightning fan? I'm not watching the game. You got to tell us, Luke. You got some Bears fans watching.
This is the remote turning the game off.
Okay, so our condolences if you're a Tampa Bay Lightning fan. Clearly, without
it was 4-1 in the third period, Brian. 4-1.
Listen, I feel your pain. I feel your pain, Luke. And I think Bears fans will feel the same way if Ryan Poles announces Bijan at the number 9 pick. I think you'll get that same reaction. Remember the old school draft days, Luke, with the New York when it was in Radio City and the Jets and Giants fans would get all pissed off when there was a pick that they didn't like when the Jets drafted Kyle Brady. Remember, that was the ultimate moment when the Jets drafted Kyle Brady, and Jets fans reacted just like you in real time as the Tampa Bay Lightning surrender a 4-1 lead and lose in overtime. But Luke, we got to get back on track here. Let's see how much of a professional you really are, going from playoff heartbreak defeat to NFL draft talk. We're bringing it right back here. You talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. being a first-round pick, I will take the discount rack version of Jahmyr Gibbs on day 2, late day 2, and Devon Achane. Give me that dude. Give me Tyreek Hill playing running back, Luke. That guy, look, he's undersized. I know he's a little undersized, maybe a lot undersized. But if you're talking about maybe plus minus 15 pounds from Jahmyr Gibbs, I think Achane's going to be a bigger home run hitter.
You just told me Jahmyr Gibbs was too small at 199. What the?
I'm not taking him in the first round. I'll take Devon Achane in round 3. A discounted,
that could be the third,
25% off version. Give me that guy. Right. That's where you scoop up running back value.
I'm not telling you I would do it. I'm just telling you that I think it's going to happen.
Hey, listen, this is your Excel sheet. You got your own little column for Jahmyr Gibbs, whatever that means. You're gonna take his own
position.
Round.
He's his own position. That's what it means.
So if the Bears do take Bijan Robinson, because I'm telling you right now, if he gets by Atlanta at number 8, Ryan Poles is going to sit there and say, you know what? This isn't fantasy football, but this would be a lot of fun. Watching number 1 hand off to number 5, unless that's a retired number, somebody else's number 5. No, watching number 1 hand off to Bijan and let the fireworks just happen. What would you tell Bears fans if that happened? What would your advice be to Bears fans if Bijan is the first round pick? How would you counsel them to avoid the Kyle Brady draft year Jets reaction at Radio City?
I would remind you what you just got to move down from number 1. First of all, you are still well within, and that's part of why you can make that pick. You took the best player available, a guy that is going to make an immediate impact for your team on all 3 downs, a guy that is going to make Justin Fields' life so much easier, and especially behind an offensive line that is going to be rebuilt. I'm going to tell you that you're still going to be able to find a right tackle in the second round. You got 2 second-round picks, okay? You're still going to be able to fill the needs that you have with the picks that you have, especially between this offseason and next offseason. And, oh, by the way, you have a generational running back in the backfield who, again, we're not talking about – it's unfair to compare these guys to the history, that you have in this position. And I'm not going to say that Bijan Robinson is going to be the second coming of sweetness. But what I'm saying is when you can find productive running backs in the later rounds. We know this. You cannot find Bijan Robinson in the later rounds. You cannot find Saquon Barkley in the later rounds. You cannot find a special player at that position that late in the draft. It's not going to happen. You can have guys that can combine and grind out the yards and be productive enough. But I'm going to tell you that if you take him at 9, you took the 3rd best player in the draft at number 9, and you got a guy that's going to help Justin Fields be the best version of himself. I'm fine with that. Again, I can sell that all day long.
And here's the thing, right? Like on draft weekend, you have the analysis, the knee-jerk reaction, the draft valuation, positional value. And for a 48-hour, 72-hour, 96-hour window after a pick, if it's Bijan, you're going to have all the reasons why it wasn't the right pick. The exactly what you argued, somebody in the comments here, Frank, is saying Zach Charbonnet and all these different types of players that maybe you can get later in the draft. Sure. And that's going to be great content, a lot of clicks, post-draft grades, the C+ Bijan grade. That's what you're going to see. And then the dust is going to settle, right? And you're going to go from post-draft reaction to rookie minicamp.
He's going to be the number 1 pick in every single fantasy dynasty draft.
Going to get the Bijan jersey. And the preseason debut of Bijan Robinson, if whoever drafts him in the first round, that's going to be the only click that you're going to watch SportsCenter. You're going to go on the NFL app. You're going to want to watch what does Bijan look like in the NFL. He is going to be the most exciting rookie in the league. And you talked about what the Chicago Bears got in terms of the trade with the Panthers. If I told you in January, the moment the Chicago Bears got that number 1 overall pick, that they would flip it into an offense that went from Justin Fields and a collection of misfit wide receivers and an injured David Montgomery, an injured Khalil Herbert, all these, whatever, to Justin Fields, DJ Moore, and Bijan Robinson, you would say to yourself, how the hell did that happen? What miracle occurred for this to be the 2023 Chicago Bears triangle, the triplets.
And oh, by the way, you got more picks than that too.
Yeah,
You got another
exactly. And in
first round pick and
2024,
another
you have
second
2
round
firsts.
pick.
Exactly. So this is where the positional valuation has to be overlooked a little bit, because the best teams, the best offenses, sure, modern era, the triplets is more like the quarterback and 2 wide receivers,
Right.
but you need that triple threat. Justin Fields, Bijan Robinson, DJ Moore, and let's just hope Chase Claypool, maybe Darnell Moon. You're starting to cook with real gas here if that's the pick. So I wouldn't be super surprised. Luke, let's pivot to some non-Bears draft talk for a moment. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. This is a very polarizing quarterback class, in my opinion. I look at this and say, man, thank God the Bears have Justin Fields, because I would not want to be one of these teams early in the first round hitching my wagon to Bryce Young, who, I'm sorry, he ain't it, man. Bryce Young ain't it. I'm sorry. He's not going to be the guy. I don't know if he's your number one guy. Maybe he has his own column in your spreadsheet, Luke, but he's not going to do it. The only quarterback I would take in the first round from this group is Anthony Richardson. He's the only one. All these other guys, including Bryce Young, I wouldn't take him in the first round. I think you're going to see a major shock with the first round in terms of how the quarterbacks end up. I do not think this is going to be. You remember last year, this time, everybody saying Malik Willis was a candidate to be a top 5 pick, and he goes in the 3rd round. We've seen this before. Go back to the EJ Manuel draft year when people thought there was going to be a couple quarterbacks in the first. People still thought there would be quarterbacks in the first round. There was one. This happens quite a bit where the quarterbacks are fun to talk about during draft season. But if you really watch the film, I mean, CJ Stroud, good player, accurate passer. But look at the receivers he has thrown to over the last couple of years. You almost can't screw up. You almost can't miss in that scenario. I am very worried.
How do you evaluate that, though? How do you punish the quarterback for who he plays with in terms of your evaluation, as opposed to looking at what he did with that talent? Because you could look at the film and say, we look at receiver prospect. You have a top receiver prospect, and if he has a terrible quarterback, we point it out. It'd be like, oh man, if only that guy had a quarterback that could throw him the ball. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. does. Harrison Jr. has a damn good quarterback going in.
So to kind of to how do I look at that? I'm not impressed by Stroud's arm talent. I'm not impressed by it. I think, is he an accurate thrower? Yes. But I think the best comp that I have heard is Jared Goff. Jared Goff is kind of that guy. Jared Goff, to me, has a good arm. Is he an upper-class NFL passer? No. Good enough arm? Sure. If the NFL had it to do all over again, would Jared Goff be the top pick in the NFL draft? No chance. No chance. That's hindsight. That's hindsight.
Here's what I'll say about that, though. What if draft picks have become what quarterback contracts have become, where this is what it costs to draft a decent quarterback? Is if you don't take him that high, he won't get to the 2nd round. He won't get to the 3rd round because someone else is going to take him. And now they have a solid quarterback and you don't have anybody, because that's how, you know what I mean? That's what you have to invest
get it. But I
get a halfway decent one. Feels like overpaying, but that's what the market says it costs.
And I get it. But I think what you're going to see happen this year, and this is what a lot of analysts are just either ignoring, or maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm not listening to the right shows. Next year's draft, I'm sick in the head, Luke. I've already peeked ahead.
See, I hate this. I hate this argument.
Next year's draft. Yeah, but
next year's quarterbacks are way better. Listen, we do this every.
It's not way better. It's not way better. But the top 2, Caleb Williams, Drake May.
Maybe.
No, maybe. Maybe. Those 2 guys are special. And those 2 guys are going to be the 1st and 2nd pick in next year's draft.
I hope so.
Without a doubt. And if you're the Houston Texans or the Detroit Lions, the only thing with the Detroit Lions is they're not going to pick this high ever again. They got very lucky to have the 5 pick. They could take a quarterback just because they could say, look, it's a throwaway pick.
Seattle the same way. Those teams
Seattle's
are not
in the same situation. Exactly. They could just say we're taking a quarterback now because we may never be in a position to do it again. But the teams like the Texans or the Colts or the Raiders, a lot of these top 10 teams that people think are going to use a pick on a quarterback, they're not close to competing for a Super Bowl. They could very well be tank quality teams next year. And if you end up with the first or second pick next year, you 100% have the guy. Like, there's no doubt about it. There's no questions in my mind about Drake May or Caleb Williams as long as they stay healthy. I think that's going to factor into some of these decisions here, Luke. You're going to take a first-round pick, a top 5 pick, top 8 pick on C.J. Stroud, knowing that his ceiling is Jared Goff, versus saying, screw it, I'm just rolling the dice. We're not good anyway. We might be back here next year, and if I can get Caleb Williams, I don't want to be tied to C.J. Stroud unless you're going to pull a Josh Rosen and take quarterbacks in back-to-back years. You could do it, but
I get it. I just think it's a dangerous game to play, to think that we will be bad. We will definitely be bad enough, and those guys will be good enough to pull this off, as opposed to taking a guy that I think will be good enough, and you're already there. You don't have to wait. You don't have to suck. You don't have to be disappointed that you went.
Well, what do you think? What do you think?
8.
What do you think of them? What do you think of the quarterback class?
I like it. It's not last year. Last year was a moratorium, and I agree with you on this point. But that was last year. I think last year was the NFL saying, you know what, enough's enough. We're not doing this. We're not going to elevate these quarterbacks out of nowhere. I see enough. I see enough in these guys, and I'm with you on Richardson. If I had to take a swing on somebody that. You know how I feel about this. If you take the wrong quarterback, you're getting fired anyway. So you might as well pick the one that has the best chance to be something special. And that's Anthony Richardson easily. I mean, he's got the same. We have the same conversation about Josh Allen. We had some of the same conversations about Patrick Mahomes when they were prospects. Same type of thing in terms of what they do well and what they need and the concerns and the flaws. With Richardson, a lot of it is the same stuff. So if the Panthers took Richardson at 1, I'm fine with it. I get it totally. I think Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are ready to be day 1 quarterbacks right now, and I think they'll be darn good ones. After those 3, again, I think you have solid at 1 and 2. Richardson is boom or bust, but I'm banking on the boom all day long with him, and I don't think he really gets enough credit for what he does in the pocket. I think he's a very, very good maneuverer of the pocket, if you will. It's a huge gap after that. Levis and Hooker barely snuck into my top 50 players overall. Hooker, obviously, because of the age and the injury. Levis, just because I don't know what he's going to be other than a really big, strong guy with a big, strong arm who came from a pro-style offense, and he's tough. And, he's got some cool qualities, but the actual football, the consistency, the decision-making, the lack of progression from last year to this year, there was nothing. He didn't get better, I thought. So him and Hooker are distant. Those are the day 2 guys for me. If they get to the second round, now you're talking about top 10, top 15 guys. But no, I'm perfectly comfortable with Young and Stroud. And again, Richardson as the high upside play. Those guys are all top 10 prospects in this draft for me.
See, Anthony Richardson, to me, to kind of echo some of your thoughts, Luke, he's the guy that, if you're going to take a swing on a quarterback with a top 5 pick, he better have traits that you don't see very often, or traits that match some of the game's top players at the position, at any position. If it's a running back, for example, if a team's going to take Bijan really high, he better be similar to the guys that are currently dominating the game, because there's a pretty good predictability there that he will be one of those guys.
Yep.
Wide receivers, do you have the Tyreek Hill juice, the Justin Jefferson route running? Is there some trait in the highest ranked wide receiver to say this is a top 5 guy? Because I see his traits succeeding at a very high level in today's game. Anthony Richardson is such an easy floor to predict. His floor is the quarterback who will buy himself 3 years or more of development as a passer while he just shreds defenses with his legs. Anthony Richardson's the kind of quarterback, we saw it happen in Chicago with Justin Fields, who had Justin Fields had any kind of a defense or any kind of supporting cast, the Bears would have won a lot more games. Check the stats. Yep. A lot of one-score losses in Chicago, all because Justin Fields kept games close. He didn't do much as a passer. He had his moments, but he made that offense hum at times because of his dual threat ability. Anthony Richardson could be on that same level of a runner as a Justin Fields, as a Lamar Jackson, as a Jalen Hurts. Those players, as a Josh Allen, those players buy developmental time to become better passers because they're still so dominant with what they do with their legs that they have to be on the field. So you'll take some of the errant throws, some of the bad reads, some of the interceptions, because it's still, those guys still give you a chance to make big plays, to score points. So Anthony Richardson is that guy. When I look at Bryce Young, I just don't see, first of all, I see the great decision making, the outside of structure, the point guard making things happen when chaos is around him, but I don't see how he survives in the league. I mean, you talk about outliers, and I know there are exceptions to every rule, but if a team's going to draft a quarterback number 1 overall, it's really hard to convince me that that guy is going to be arguably the biggest exception to some of the most important rules for the position in the history of the game. You want to draft him 10th overall, 15th overall, 25th overall. I get it. The risk is a little bit lower. The reward is just as high. You draft him number 1 overall. You are telling the entire NFL and the history of the draft and the history of the quarterback position that you know something that every other decision maker and every other franchise that's ever evaluated smaller quarterbacks somehow didn't know. And that Bryce Young is almost superhuman, Luke, to be able to overcome some of these size concerns. Even if he's good, let's say Bryce Young is a really good quarterback as a rookie second year. It's just going to take one game where he sacked 7 times, and it could throw him off that track of success because of his size and his inability to hold up. So to me, I would stay away from him. I wouldn't be on the Bryce Young train. Will Levis, I agree with you. I think this is another guy. You know, when I was out on Will Levis, Luke, a couple days ago, someone showed a video of him on his knee throwing the ball like 50 yards through the uprights. And all I saw was Kyle Bowler.
Kyle Bowler. Yep.
Classic guy who did that first. When it's everything but what you do on the field that pushes somebody into the first round, I'm out. You can eat all your bananas with the peels on it, put the mayonnaise in your coffee all you want, be a jacked up dude. With
That's when I was
arms.
out, by the way, the mayonnaise.
Yeah, be that guy.
Mayonnaise on anything.
Be the football guy's football guy. The minute I saw the football go through the uprights from his knee, I was out.
It's over.
Luke, any more hot takes? What do you think about Will Anderson? Do you think Will Anderson? I mean, how did the best player in the draft?
He's the best player in the draft still. He has been the whole time. Should have gone. He would have gone number 1 last year, and he's still the best player in the draft this year. I don't know what to say.
And yet he could. How far do you think he could slide? I mean, I guess Houston at 2, if they're not sold on the quarterbacks, is a possibility. But
yeah,
Houston could sell the pick to a quarterback desperate team, especially if Luke Easterling's the GM.
Keep in mind,
if Luke Easterling's the GM, he's going to trade up for the quarterback, right? So
D'Amico Ryans played linebacker at Alabama.
I hear all that.
Alabama guy. I don't know. I know he's not making the pick by himself, but wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy that he latches onto. But I don't know, man. I mean, I don't see him getting out of the top 5. I think if Arizona stays, he's the pick there. If he gets to Seattle, he's an easy pick there. I just don't see it, man. He's the comp that I gave, and you know I hate comps. I don't do them very often. If I had to be, I was forced to pick one, and I picked Khalil Mack, and I think he's that good, and prime Khalil Mack is fine with me at number 1 overall. I'll take that.
You know what? Talk about this, a crazy thought. I think that might be underselling him a little bit.
Yeah, and I think so too. I don't think there's a great comp for him. I think that's the closest I could get, but I think he's better.
I think Anderson will have it longer. He'll be able to last a little bit longer in terms of that high level of success for a longer period of time. I feel like he's more like a Mack meets Von Miller, somewhere in between those two types of player profiles. He's not an exact, like you said, he's his own guy. A little bit of Micah Parsons in there. There's a lot. And look, the names were thrown around. You take that dude high. You take him high in the first round. Luke, the Bears have 2 second-round picks. Let's circle back to the Chicago Bears here because that's what everybody wants to hear about. The Bears have 2 second-round picks, late second rounders. They have the number 9 pick. Do you think it's reasonable to think that Ryan Poles, let's say Will Anderson gets past DeMeco Ryans. Let's say Will Anderson is at the number 3 pick with the Arizona Cardinals. Do you think Ryan Poles says, you know what, screw this, I'm making a call. I'm going to try to move up. He's got 2 first-rounders next year. If you think about it, like, all right, everybody's saying, oh, well, he pulled off the trade to get that extra first-rounder next year. Well, all right, but what if just moving back 2 spots and coming away from the 2023 draft with Will Anderson and DJ Moore? That's not a bad haul either.
Right.
Do you think there's a chance that he could get aggressive and move the other way, move up in the first round if Will Anderson gets past Houston, is now on the clock at 3, maybe still hanging around with the Colts at 4, maybe hanging around when Seattle's there at 5, and maybe Seattle's not going to go in that route? You think there's a chance we could see the Bears move up?
Sure. Why not? I think that's why making those deals and getting as many picks as you can is important, because now you have the ammo. You can do whatever you want. And Anderson is a guy I would move up for. Keep in mind, even as a pass rusher, he's not a quarterback, so it's not going to cost you as much. It never does. It costs about $20 more or 20% more, right, to go up the board. $20, that'd be pretty easy, right? Just here's a $20 bill. I'll move up the board. But yeah, 20% more to trade up for a quarterback. So it's not going to cost as much to move up for any other position. So I wouldn't put it past him. Again, he's the best player in the draft. He plays a premium position, gives you that elite pass rusher. I'd be fine with that. I think he's that good.
Kind of close this out with some of the things I've been seeing on some mock drafts. A name I'm seeing more consistently than when draft season kind of took off, this is over the last couple of weeks maybe, is Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez going to the Bears at number 9. Some drafts have Devon Witherspoon going to the Bears at number 9. Cornerback suddenly coming out of nowhere as the position the Chicago Bears could end up making as their first-round priority. Some Bears fans are like, I don't get it. Like, why would Ryan Poles go back to that well after drafting Kyler Gordon with their first pick, albeit a second-rounder last year? They spent their second rounder on another secondary player, safety Jaquan Brisker. Jalen Johnson still under contract for 2023. Is it kind of overkill to make basically 3 straight, you get your first and last year's 2 seconds defensive backs, or are we just underselling Christian Gonzalez as probably, I don't know if you agree with me, Luke, but he seems to me like one of the most understated, most talented players I've seen in a draft class in a really long time. This dude is legit, and rarely do you hear about him as this premier prospect in the draft. I see some mock drafts with Gonzalez going like 15th. There's like no chance. There's no chance that's happening. Like Bears fans out there who are watching this video, whatever, there is 0 chance Christian Gonzalez gets out of the top 10 picks. If Ryan Poles does say at number 9, Gonzalez is the guy, what would on athlonsports.com, where you can follow Luke Easterling's work, what kind of grade would you give that selection if the Bears made Gonzalez their first rounder?
I would love it for a couple of reasons, because first of all, I think Christian Gonzalez is a damn good football player. And I think that it's hard to find a flaw, really. I memean, there's not really anything he doesn't do well, and he's huge and he's got long arms and he picks the ball off when it gets anywhere near him. Everybody's throwing the ball all the time. You got to have 3 starting corners who are really good in this league. You got to have a nickel specialist in the slot. You got to have 2 outside guys who can shut down. And you have to have 2 of them, or they'll just ignore the other one and throw it the other way. So I think taking an elite cornerback prospect is never a bad idea for anybody, because you almost always need another one. So I'm fine with it. I love Gonzalez as a prospect. If anybody has him at cornerback 1, I'm fine with it. I have Witherspoon a little bit ahead of him, but I love both of those guys. I know. Same Bryce Young thing. He's too small. He's 184, whatever it is. The film is nice, man. The film is
physical.
Nice.
Physical hitter. And Dan Sharp is saying in the comments, Christian Gonzalez needs to learn how to tackle better. I agree with that. He's not going to really do much in run support, but that's not why cornerbacks get paid these days. Nope. They're paid to shut down the outside wide receivers, and Christian Gonzalez is going to do it as good as anybody. As far as Witherspoon, physical dude, those defensive backs that really throw their body around and hit hard don't usually last very long. They tend to fall off the career cliff a little faster. Not that it necessarily matters if you're looking for a first couple years of production, but I just also think Gonzalez is on another level as a cover guy. I just think his
I get it.
fluidity
Yeah,
and his just straight line speed, natural athletic ability. I wrote in a post recently on Bears Talk that it almost looks like Gonzalez is running the route for the receiver at times, and that's that innate football IQ that you really can't. I don't think it's really a learned trait when you get to this level. You either got it or you don't, and Gonzalez has it. Luke, who is Luke Easterling's guy? Who are Luke Easterling's guys? Who are the 3 or 4 draft prospects in this year's class that Luke Easterling is pegging his reputation on? And we have this video on YouTube for the rest of our known lives and beyond. Luke, who are your guys in the 2023 NFL draft? If you remember, Luke, I'm going to kind of call a little shout out to the It's Always Draft Season days.
Oh my!
When you and I did a podcast a few years ago.
Did that happen? Was that real?
It happened. It was
like an
real.
Alternate reality.
And I told you that my prediction for one of the busts of whatever draft. When did Clyde Edwards-Helaire come out? And I told you that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was one of my picks to be a bust from that draft class. And you ripped me apart, Luke. You ripped me apart. You didn't like that take. That will forever be immortalized.
It's true.
So I'm putting you on notice. You're being warned. This next segment here, the next few names you're going to bring up, I will continue to remind you, good or bad, whether or not you were right. So your guys, 2023, who are Luke Easterling's guys in this year's draft?
Yeah, well, you can remind everybody who the only person on the planet was who said Kevin Byard was going to be that dude too. You can say that as well. Put that alongside that, by the way. But no, I've had a lot more misses than hits, so I'm just going to highlight the hits, right? No, I'm going to give you 3 guys. I'm going to give you 3 guys, and they're all on defense. 2 of them are corners. I love this corner class so much. But we'll start at linebacker because this linebacker class sucks. I hate it. There's not a lot of top end talent. There's nobody I have a first round grade on at that position, which is, it's not out of the ordinary to have a group that you don't have any first round grades, but it just tells you there's not even the quality depth throughout to make up for it, right? If you don't have the top blue chip guy, you hope that at least you have a second, third round where there's some depth. I don't see it. I don't like it. I think there's 3 or 4 guys at the top that I would take on day 2. And then all of the rest of them are special teams guys that I'd look at on day 3. But the guy at the top, for me, the number 1 linebacker in this draft is Deion Henley from Washington State. He is the guy that I think can be Fred Warner. He is the modern linebacker. He's a converted wide receiver. Started his career at Nevada, transferred to Washington State for a year. But he's a converted wide receiver, and he looks like it when the ball gets near him. He's super comfortable in space. He can cover all over the field. And again, everybody's in nickel or dime now, right? So the linebackers are getting fewer and fewer, and they're having to cover more and more space. So when you look at a guy like Fred Warner, long arms, rangy, he's a little bit lean, but it helps, right? And so when I look at Deion Henley, that's what I see. I see a former receiver who knows what to do when the ball gets near him. He can blitz. He's got great pass rushing technique, so he gives you a weapon there. I wasn't inspired by a lot of the other linebackers in this draft. He's the guy that I get excited about, and I'm like, that's a dude that's going to make plays in today's NFL, play linebacker the way you need to play it. And the 2 corners I love, Julius Brents from Kansas State is a guy that, again, you want to talk about traits, man, 6'3", 280 million inch arms, and those guys don't grow on trees. Those guys should never make it to the second round, in my opinion. I think he should be a first-round pick. He's a first-round guy for me. And again, it won't surprise me if he goes in the first round because I think teams are smart enough. They know those guys don't have it. Tariq Woolen should have never been in the 5th round, and hopefully they learn their lesson. And
I'm going to jump in here real quick, Luke, because I did see your draft rankings list on athlonsports.com. All of you out there watching this video, make sure you click on Athlon Sports. Check out Luke's recently published top 300 players in the 2023 NFL draft. And the guy I noticed was Julius Brents in your first round grades. Yep. I think you have like 23 or 25 overall, 23, something like that.
23.
And the minute I saw that, I said, you know what? This is a list you got to pay attention to because I like Julius Brents too. And I agree with you. It's a traits-based league. Part of the reason why I said I'm not so sure about Bryce Young is because it's a traits-based league.
Right.
So the opposite is also true. Guys that you're not hearing much about, these long, tall, fast cornerbacks he was incredible at the Senior Bowl. Those guys suddenly in pick 26, 27, 28, they
and
come
look
off
at the
the board.
combine. Look at the combine. It wasn't
Yeah.
just speed. He crushed everything. The short
Exactly.
area quickness, the leaps, everything off the charts at that size with those arms. Ridiculous.
You don't find those guys very often, so I agree with you. He's a first rounder. Got any other names, Luke? Any other guys who are your guys?
One more, and it's kind of the opposite, right? A guy that went to the combine kind of disappointed. Wasn't the you and I have talked about this before. You can be small, you can be slow, you can't be both, right? This is a guy that I think would have liked to have a better combine, but I don't care. The film is that good, and I love Clark Phillips III from Utah. This is a guy, you put him in the slot, make him your nickel guy, and forget about it because the guy knows how to find the ball, knows what to do when he gets there, and he'll take it to the house every single time. It's a guy that, again, just turn on. I mean, the highlight reel is a highlight reel, but go watch the film, and it basically is a highlight reel because that's how many times he makes big plays. So, yes, he's undersized. Yes, he might not be as fast in the 40 as you would want a smaller guy to be, but I'm telling you, the instincts, the IQ, the ball skills, the playmaking ability, Clark Phillips III is a damn good football player, and I think a guy that can be a Pro Bowler. If he's anywhere on the board on day two, I love that guy.
So, Luke, most people who follow you will know that you're a Tampa Bay guy, Buccaneers guy. Obviously, your emotions you wore on your sleeve here as a Lightning fan. Who's your pick for the Buccaneers in round one? Not who you want. Who do you think they're going to take round one?
I think it's very similar to 2020. When they went into that draft, they were picking 14th, and there were 4 offensive tackles in that draft that we all knew were first-round guys, right? And they had to get one of them because the only big need that they had, that was Tom Brady had just signed, and they were coming into this draft, and they had to have a right tackle. They had Donovan Smith. They had the whole offensive line. It was okay. They had to have a right tackle. And so 13th pick comes up, and they flip a 4th-round pick. They gave up a 4 to move up from 14 to 13. And everybody's like, what the hell are you doing? You're giving up way too much just to move up one spot. They moved up because there was one tackle left on the board. And because, if I remember correctly, what I heard was the Atlanta Falcons were trying to make the same deal. They were trying to move up ahead of the Bucs at 13 with San Francisco, who was picking 13th, to take this guy. And they took Tristan Wirfs, who became, again, in my opinion, the best right tackle in football right now, very quickly. So this draft feels similar in that there are 4 tackles that I think everybody can agree are first-round guys. And so if any of those 4 guys gets to 19, that's the pick. Broderick Jones feels like the guy that would be the best fit because he's the left tackle, and I think that would allow them to keep Wirfs on the right. They're already cross-training him in the offseason to play left if he needs to move over. I'd prefer not to mess with that if I can help it and leave him where I know he's good. So if one of those tackles is on the board, it's easy. Other than that, I think they really would love to move down. They don't have a 4. They traded it last year to get Zion McCollum in the 5th round. So I think if they can move down to the latter part of the first round, get down to the end of the first round, they target a pass rusher. They target maybe a nickel guy like Brian Branch from Alabama, who I think would fit well in Todd Bowles' defense. I think the dark horse at 19, though, if he's there, I think Bijan Robinson conversation is going to happen if he makes it to 19, which I don't think he will.
Every team.
They're going to have to. He's always going to be the best player on the board until 100%. He goes. So I think that's a conversation that they're going to have. It's got to be tackle. They're going to try to move down, and if not, Bijan is the dark horse there.
And Luke, you're the best draft analyst on the board. That's why you keep coming back to Bears talk. That's why Bears fans are lucky to have you on this show. We're all lucky to have you in draft Twitter. Athlonsports.com is where you can find all of his work, and on social media, on Twitter, at Luke Easterling. Make sure you have him bookmarked, the alerts turned on during draft weekend, because you're not going to have a better and more thorough analysis, as you saw today in this video, from anyone. And let me say this too. Luke's assessment of players are honest. The information he gives you is honest. It's real. It's not fabricated. It's not pulled out of thin air. It's because he watched the player and he's using a lifetime of experience in talent evaluation and just understanding the landscape of the draft and roster construction. So if you want to get smarter and just have a fun time following the draft, make sure you're following him. And of course,
checks in the mail. Checks in the mail, Brian.
And of course, Make sure you're subscribed to this show. Make sure you turn on the alerts. We were away for a little while. Took a little family trip down to Disney World, which if you've ever been to Disney World, you know you need a week just to recover from that. Yep. So we're still getting through the post-Disney stress syndrome, whatever you want to call it. But we're back now. The draft is here. We are in draft week. I hope you guys enjoyed this first ever live edition of Bears Talk. We'll be back after the first round, probably Friday morning, with a quick video grading the Bears' performance on round 1. And then obviously the rest of the draft grades will flow after that in draft weekend. Make sure you come to bearstalk.com every single day this week, this month, and for the rest of the year. We're not going anywhere. Follow me on Twitter at Brian Perez NFL. Follow Bears Talk at the Bears Talk. Go to our Facebook page. Make sure you like and follow the Facebook page. It's a growing group of Bears fans over there as well. Most importantly, Bears fans, please remember, no matter who comes to Chicago via the number 9 pick, whether you like the pick, hate the pick, love it, wish it was somebody else, they're a Chicago Bear. They will be part of an elite fraternity of football players with the deepest and richest tradition in the league. And if it was a position you wanted or a position that you weren't expecting, at the end of the day, they're going to become part of the Chicago Bears family. And together, we will continue bearing down and cheering on this team. Luke, thank you again. Enjoy the 2023 NFL Draft, and we will have you back very soon. And Bears fans, keep coming back to Bears Talk.